I figured letting my best friend crash at my place for a week would be the easiest favor I'd ever agreed to. Instead, it turned into the week that rearranged everything I thought I understood about Jordan and about myself. It started with one text, asterisk hey weird ask, any shot I could stay with you for a week asterisk I sat at my desk, staring at my phone pretending I'd been doing actual work for the last 20 minutes. Jordan never asked for help. That was kind of his whole personality. He'd drive 3 hours to help someone move a couch and then refuse to let you carry his groceries. So when that message popped up, I knew right away something was off. I called him. He picked up on the second ring. His voice sounded worn out, not sick, not upset, just drained. What's going on? I asked to pause. My place flooded. Burst in the apartment above mine. Serious? Dead serious. He laughed, but it came out tired. Looks like someone took a fire hose to my bedroom. Damn, yeah. Another pause. Landlord saying a week maybe before I can move back in. Then why are you even asking? Just come stay here. Sure, Jordan. I know, just checking. Seriously, come stay here. He laughed again, and this time it actually sounded like him. Okay, thanks Theo, no problem, I'll grab groceries. You don't have to, doing it anyway. Fine, and get beer. You're speaking my language. By the time we hung up, I was smiling, which should have been completely normal, except it wasn't, not really, because lately every time Jordan's name lit up my screen, every time he walked into a room, something happened in my chest that I'd been actively refusing to name. I'd spent months telling myself it was nothing. A weird phase, loneliness playing tricks on me, anything except the obvious truth. The truth was simple, I liked him, a lot. Which was a problem because Jordan was asterisk Jordan, easy confidence, effortlessly good-looking, the guy who made friends wherever he went, the guy everyone fell for eventually, completely unaware of how much space he took up in my head. So naturally, the universe's solution to that was making him my roommate for 7 days. Perfect. Just perfect. The next afternoon, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Jordan standing there with 2 duffel bags and a cardboard box balanced on one hip. Miss me? No, let me in. He stepped past me and pulled me into a quick one-armed hug, a completely ordinary, totally unremarkable best friend hug. Nothing worth overthinking, except my heart apparently hadn't gotten that memo. Thanks again for this, he said. Stop thanking me, I'm going to keep saying it anyway. I know. He grinned, and I hated how well that grin worked on me every single time. My apartment wasn't big, a small 2-bedroom near downtown. The second room usually doubled as an office and storage closet, but I'd spent most of the previous evening clearing it out so it actually resembled somewhere a person could sleep. Jordan looked around. Wow, you actually cleaned. Don't act so shocked, I've seen your car. That's different, it's really not. You cleaned for me, he said, smiling wider. I cleaned because guests were coming. Sure, Theo cleaned for me. I rolled my eyes. Unpack your stuff. That smile of his stayed with me for the rest of the afternoon. The first couple of days were easy, suspiciously easy. We cooked dinner together, argued about which movie to watch, made fun of each other's music taste, the usual stuff, except now it was constant. Morning, afternoon, night. And the longer we spent in the same 4 walls, the harder it got to ignore the small things I normally had distance from, the way his whole face changed when he was genuinely happy, the way he remembered tiny details from conversations weeks old, the way he'd knock on the office door just to ask if I wanted coffee because he already knew the answer. Small things, dangerous things, the kind that let feelings grow roots. By the 4th night, we were out on my balcony after dinner, city lights stretching out below us. Jordan leaned back in his chair. I forgot how much I missed this, he said. Missed what? Just this, hanging out. I looked over. He was watching the skyline. We got busy, I said. Yeah, jobs, adulthood, we're 26, basically ancient. He laughed. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The air was cool, easy, then he spoke again. Can I tell you something? His tone had shifted, no more joking around. Sure, he hesitated, actually hesitated, which immediately put me on alert because Jordan didn't hesitate. Had kind of a rough few months. What do you mean? He rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous habit he'd had since high school. I haven't really talked about it. Talked about what? His eyes stayed on the city. When he finally answered, his voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. It's about why Mia and I actually broke up. My stomach dropped. That breakup had happened 3 months ago and he'd never once told me the real reason behind it, not even me. Then he turned to face me and for the first time all week he looked genuinely unguarded. I haven't told anyone this, Theo. The easygoing version of him was gone now, just the 2 of us on the balcony in the dark, and whatever he was carrying, I leaned in a little. You can tell me anything, you know that. I know. But he still didn't say anything else for a few seconds, just stared out at the skyline. Then he sighed. When Mia and I broke up, everyone assumed it was because we'd been fighting. Wasn't it? Not really, not until the very end. What was it? He let out a humorless laugh. She thought I was hiding something from her. That only confused me more. Were you? His eyes met mine. Something flickered across his face, something I couldn't quite place. Maybe. I waited. He looked away again. She kept asking me questions. What kind? The kind I didn't have answers for. He wasn't making this any easier, and from the look on his face he knew it. Jordan, you're being incredibly vague. That finally got a small smile out of him. A lot, he laughed quietly, then the smile faded again. Honestly, Theo, I don't even know how to explain it. Silence stretched out. I could practically watch him deciding whether to keep going. Eventually he nodded. Have you ever felt like everyone else figured something out before you did? I blinked. About themselves. Yeah, I stared at him, even more lost now. Not really, he leaned back. Mia always seemed so sure about everything. She knew exactly what she wanted. People don't. Maybe. His eyes dropped to the floor, but she knew what she felt. Whole conversation felt like a puzzle missing half its pieces. I wanted to push, ask more, but something told me he wasn't ready. Not yet. So instead I said, you don't have to figure it all out right now. His gaze lifted, and the way he looked at me made my chest tighten for no reason I could name. I know. Then he smiled, a real one this time. Sorry for dumping all that on you. That's literally what I'm here for. Something in his expression softened. Yeah, best friends. The word sat strangely in my chest because lately I wasn't sure best friend was the only thing I wanted to be to him anymore. The next morning I was making coffee when Jordan wandered into the kitchen, hair a disaster, shirt wrinkled, somehow still annoyingly attractive. Morning, he mumbled. You look terrible. Thanks, you're welcome. He grabbed a mug. I watched him yawn. Didn't sleep, not much, thinking. His eyes flicked toward me then away. Maybe. I handed him his coffee. He took it with a grateful look. You know me too well. That line followed me around for the rest of the day because it was true. I did know him well, probably better than anyone alive. I knew when he was stressed, when he was lying, when he was pretending everything was fine. And right now, something was clearly going on underneath all of it. That evening we sat down to watch a movie, or at least pretended to. I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in it. My attention kept drifting toward Jordan instead. Halfway through, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his expression shifted, not angry, just uncomfortable. You good? I asked. He locked the screen. Yeah, was it? A pause. Mia. Oh, he set the phone face down on the couch cushion. She still texts sometimes. I wasn't sure why that bothered me as much as it did. It shouldn't have. She'd been a huge part of his life. Of course she still reached out, but my chest tightened anyway. Jordan noticed. You're making a weird face. I'm not. You are. I grabbed a handful of popcorn. I'm watching the movie. You hate this movie? I do. Then what's wrong? I looked at him, and for one reckless second I almost said it, that I hated hearing Mia's name. That I hated being reminded he'd never look at me the way he used to look at her, that I hated how much I cared in the first place. Instead, I shrugged. Nothing. He studied me a beat too long before nodding. Okay. But he clearly didn't buy it. I couldn't sleep that night. The apartment was dark and quiet, my ceiling suddenly fascinating around midnight. By 1 a.m. I was still wide awake. At some point I got up for water, and as I passed the living room I stopped. Someone was out on the balcony. Jordan. Alone. I slid the door open. Normal people sleep at this hour, you know. He glanced over. Couldn't sleep. I stepped outside. The city glittered below us. Want company? A small smile. Sure. I sat next to him. Neither of us spoke for a while, but it wasn't an awkward silence. It never really was with him. Eventually he broke it. You ever wonder how different things would have been if we'd never met? I laughed. That's random. Answer the question. I actually thought about it, then shook my head. Honestly, no, I don't like imagining it. His smile faded a little. Why? Asterisk. Because you're the most important person in my life. Because every memory that matters somehow has you in it. Because I don't know who I'd be without you. Asterisk. I swallowed all of that and said, because you're my best friend. He stared at me, and for a second something in his expression looked almost disappointed. Then it was gone. So are you. Words should have made me happy. Instead they left an ache behind, because for the first time I wasn't sure best friend was enough for me anymore. And judging by the way he turned back toward the skyline, I had a feeling he was hiding something bigger than just a breakup. The next few days should have made things easier. Instead, they made everything harder, not because anything dramatic happened, because nothing did. Life just settled into a rhythm, and that rhythm got dangerously comfortable fast. Jordan made coffee every morning before I was even up. We ate dinner together every night. Sometimes we watched movies, sometimes we sat out on the balcony talking until midnight. The problem was I liked it too much. I caught myself listening for his footsteps in the hallway, looking forward to hearing him laugh from another room, looking forward to just asterisk seeing him walk in. Once I noticed that, there was no more pretending. I was in trouble. Saturday started with rain, heavy gray, the kind that swallows the whole city. Jordan wandered into the living room with a blanket and immediately claimed half the couch. You look productive, he said, glancing at my laptop. Been working. You've stared at the same spreadsheet for 15 minutes. That's still working. Come watch a movie. I have deadlines. Theo, I sighed. You are unbelievably annoying. Been told. Minutes later we were watching some forgettable action movie neither of us cared about. At some point Jordan stretched out and dropped his feet against my leg on the couch. Neither of us moved them. It shouldn't have mattered, except suddenly I was hyper-aware of every single point where we were touching. I stared at the TV like it held the answers to everything. Jordan chose that exact moment to ask, can I ask you something? Depends. Have you ever been in love? My brain short-circuited. What? That's not an answer. That's not a normal question. Kind of is. He shrugged like it was nothing. Just curious. I looked at him. Where'd that even come from? He looked back at the TV. I don't know. The lie was obvious, but I let it slide, mostly because I wasn't sure I wanted to answer my own question yet. Well, he pushed, I sighed. Maybe. His eyes snapped back to me immediately. Maybe there was someone. The words were out before I could stop them. He sat up a little. Someone years ago. His face went strangely focused. What happened? I forced a smile. Nothing. He never knew. The second it left my mouth, I regretted it. Jordan froze just for a split second, but long enough for me to catch it. Asterisk, there it was, no taking it back now. Asterisk, I looked away. Yeah, the room went very quiet. I'd never officially come out to him, not because I was hiding it, the topic had just never come up. Now it had. I braced for the awkward pause, the surprise, the questions. Instead, Jordan just nodded slowly. Oh, I risked a glance. His face was unreadable. That's it, I asked. That's your whole reaction? He looked genuinely confused. What were you expecting? I don't know. He shook his head, then smiled. Theo. Yeah, you're still you. Something in my chest loosened, a knot I hadn't even realized I was carrying. He bumped his shoulder against mine. Did you really think I'd care? I laughed a little. Idiot. The warmth in his voice made my stomach flip, which was a whole new problem because now he knew, and somehow that made everything I felt for him feel even more real. That night we ordered takeout. The rain hadn't let up, thunder rolling somewhere over the city. Jordan was at the kitchen counter when he asked, "Can I ask another question?" I groaned. "Depends," he smiled. Was he a friend? The guy you liked? I froze, immediately knowing exactly who he meant, except there wasn't really a guy from years ago. There was only one guy and he was sitting 3 feet away from me, but obviously I couldn't say that, so I nodded. Yeah, he looked down at his food. That's hard. What is having feelings for a friend? The way he said it made me look up. His eyes were fixed on the counter, voice quieter than usual, almost thoughtful, almost personal. You think so? He nodded. Yeah. My pulse picked up, the room felt smaller somehow. Why? A long pause, then he exhaled slowly. Because if it goes wrong, his jaw tight, you lose more than just a relationship. I stared at him. The words felt loaded, too loaded, like he wasn't talking about me anymore, like he was talking about himself. The realization hit hard enough to steal my breath. Before I could say anything, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and stood up fast. I need to take this. Then he disappeared down the hallway, leaving me alone with one terrifying possibility. What if Jordan wasn't actually struggling with a breakup at all? What if he was struggling with feelings he didn't know what to do with, for someone he called a friend? The thought should have felt impossible. Instead, it followed me the rest of the night, because for the first time I wasn't completely sure I was imagining things. Around midnight, there was a knock on my bedroom door. Door opened a crack. Jordan stood there, nervous again, a pattern by now. Can I ask one last thing? I sat up. Sure. He hesitated long enough to make my pulse spike, then finally said, that guy you liked. Yeah, his eyes met mine and neither of us looked away. Do you ever still think about him? The question hit harder than it should have because the answer was painfully simple every single day and he was standing right in front of me. Sometimes, I said quietly. He nodded, but something in his face told me that wasn't the answer he'd hoped for. Then he gave me a small smile. Night, Theo. Night. Door clicked shut and I lay there staring at the ceiling because something was shifting between us. I could feel it. Neither of us was saying it out loud, neither of us was acknowledging it. But it was there, growing, waiting, and sooner or later, one of us was going to have to tell the truth. The next morning felt different, though nothing had actually happened, no confessions, no dramatic turns. Maybe it was the question from the night before. Maybe it was that I was finally running out of excuses for what I felt. Morning, Jordan said, handing me a mug before I could even ask. Our fingers brushed, a completely ordinary thing that happens 100 times a day between two people sharing a kitchen. Except neither of us pulled away right on cue. The moment lasted less than a second. I noticed it anyway. Judging by his face, so did he. Neither of us mentioned it. That afternoon, with the rain finally gone, we wandered through a small outdoor market downtown, food stalls, a street musician, people clutching iced coffee. Jordan seemed lighter than he had all week. Near a vendor selling handmade prints, he suddenly laughed. I asked. He pointed across the street where a couple was sharing a tiny umbrella despite the fact it had completely stopped raining. The guy nearly walked into a signpost because he was too busy looking at his girlfriend. Ridiculous, I said, smiling. They seem happy. They do. His answer came out oddly thoughtful, almost wistful. When I looked over, he was still watching them, expression unreadable. Then he caught me staring. You're doing the thing? What thing? The overthinking thing, I laughed. Maybe you spend too much time in your own head. That's rich coming from you. His smile faded slightly. Fair. It was the first time all day he'd looked genuinely serious, and I had a feeling I knew why. Whatever he'd been trying to tell me all week still hadn't fully made it out. That evening, we picked up pizza and sat on the living room floor with the box between us. Halfway through, Jordan asked, can I ask something weird? You've asked that like 6 times this week. Yeah, but this one's actually weird. That's concerning. He smiled nervously, then looked down at the box. Have you ever been scared to tell someone something? The question hit immediately. Obviously, I'm living that answer right now. Asterisk, sure. Happened. I took a sip of my drink. Usually I just never told them. He nodded slowly, like that answer made too much sense to him. You ever regret it? The room went quiet. I looked at him, really looked, and suddenly it didn't feel like we were talking about me anymore. Sometimes. His jaw tightened, then he nodded almost to himself, like confirming something. Yeah, my pulse sped up. Jordan, what are we actually talking about? For one second I thought he might finally tell me. Something flickered across his face, fear, hope, uncertainty all at once. Then it vanished and he smiled, a fake one, the kind I knew better than anyone alive. Nothing. I sighed. You're impossible. Been told. The conversation moved on, but the feeling didn't leave the room. Later, watching another movie neither of us was actually watching, Jordan spoke into the soft glow of the TV. Theo. Yeah, glad I asked to stay here, my chest tightened. Me too, he looked over. Neither of us said anything else. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just full, like there were words sitting between us, waiting for someone brave enough to pick them up. Then he looked away first, and whatever almost happened slipped away again. The next day was supposed to be Jordan's last full day at my place. His landlord had called, repairs nearly finished, move back in the following afternoon. The news should have made me happy for him. Instead, it felt like a small hole opening in my chest, which was pathetic. It had only been a week, and yet the idea of him leaving suddenly felt wrong. He seemed quieter too, distracted. That evening we ordered food again and spent most of dinner on old memories, high school stories, a road trip where we got hopelessly lost. The usual stuff, but underneath it there was tension neither of us could ignore anymore. Eventually we ended up back on the balcony, the same spot where he'd first mentioned Mia, the same place where our biggest conversations always seemed to happen. The city sparkled below. Jordan leaned against the railing. Can I tell you something? My heart sped up instantly. That tone again, asterisk. He took a breath, then another, looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him, not during finals, not during job interviews, not ever. Theo. His voice caught. He looked away, then back at me, and what I saw in his eyes made my pulse hammer because I recognized it. I'd seen that exact look every time I'd looked at him. I think I've been lying to myself for a long time. The air seemed to leave my lungs. Neither of us moved. Neither of us looked away. And for the first time since he'd arrived, I had a feeling I knew exactly where this was going. Asterisk, I think I've been lying to myself for a long time. Asterisk, the words hung between us. The city lights blurred behind him as my brain tried to catch up. My heart was pounding hard enough that I was sure he could hear it. What do you mean? I finally managed. He swallowed. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely scared. Not nervous, scared. Don't know how to explain it. A shaky laugh, that's the problem. I stayed quiet, letting him find his words. Eventually he nodded. After Mia and I broke up, I kept trying to figure out why everything felt wrong. His eyes dropped to the street below. At first I thought it was just the relationship. I listened, but then I realized the problems didn't start with her. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. They started way before that, my chest tight. How long before? A sad, soft laugh. Honestly, years. Answer landed harder than I expected. Years, not months, not recently. Years, asterisk. He rubbed a hand across his face. I kept telling myself it would go away. What would? He hesitated, then smiled sadly. The questions, I felt my pulse jump again. Questions, plural, like he'd been carrying them a long time. I didn't want to think about them, he said, voice tired, so I ignored them. Pieces were coming together slowly, dangerously, and I wasn't sure I was ready for where they pointed. For a while neither of us spoke. The night air felt cooler, or maybe that was just my nerves. Eventually he exhaled. You know what the worst part was? I shook my head. No, he looked directly at me. Realizing I couldn't stop thinking about one person, everything inside me froze. One person, just one, asterisk. My mouth went dry. I knew I should say something, ask something, anything, but I was terrified of the answer. He looked away first, toward the city, toward anything except me. I tried dadding, tried convincing myself everything was normal. A pause. It never worked. I swallowed hard. The silence stretched on, then finally I forced the question out. He closed his eyes for a second, opened them again, and looked at me, directly at me. My heart actually stopped because suddenly I knew before he even said it. You, Theo. My entire body went still. Yeah, he laughed nervously and shook his head. God, this is a disaster. Doesn't have to be. His eyes searched mine like he was looking for permission, for safety, for something solid to hold on to. Then he said it. It's you. World went completely quiet, no traffic, no city noise, nothing, just those two words. For years I'd imagined hearing something like that, and now that it was actually happening I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Jordan looked away immediately. See? His voice cracked. Disaster. I blinked. What? I shouldn't have said anything. He stepped back from the railing, raking a hand through his hair, clearly panicking. I'll find a hotel tomorrow. My brain finally rebooted. What? You don't have to pretend this isn't. Jordan, I get it. No, seriously. He laughed again, miserable this time. Jordan. He stopped talking. I stood up, legs unsteady, heart completely out of control, and suddenly I couldn't believe how stupid we'd both been. For how long? For years, asterisk. You idiot. His eyebrows shot up. What? I laughed, actually laughed, partly relief, partly disbelief, partly because the whole thing was completely absurd. He repeated. I stepped closer. You absolute idiot. He looked thoroughly confused now. Theo, what are you talking about? I shook my head, still laughing, then looked directly at him and finally told the truth. Guy I liked. His expression shifted, slow and careful. What about him? I smiled. It was you. The silence that followed felt enormous. Jordan just stared like his brain had completely shut down, which was fair because mine had too. You. His voice disappeared. I nodded. Yeah, his eyes went wide. Seriously, seriously. Neither of us moved. Neither of us seemed capable of moving. Then he laughed, a shocked, disbelieving laugh. Kidding, I'm not. What? I know what. I started laughing too. That's exactly how I felt 5 seconds ago. He covered his face with both hands. Oh my God, yeah, oh my God. I couldn't stop smiling. Neither could he. Years we'd both spent asterisk years on this. Years hiding, years assuming the other one didn't feel the same, years being absolute idiots. And now suddenly everything was different, completely different. Because the truth was finally out, and neither of us had any idea what came next. For a long moment we just stood there on the balcony, staring at each other, trying to process the fact that everything we'd spent years hiding had just spilled out into the open in under 2 minutes. Jordan broke first, laughing again, not because anything was funny, but because he was overwhelmed, which made two of us. "I can't believe this." "Neither can I," he pointed at me. "Do you have any idea how long I've been driving myself insane over this?" "How long?" "At least a year." My eyebrows shot up. "A year asterisk, probably longer." "Jordan, what? You are unbelievably bad at communicating." "That's rich coming from you." "Very fair." Neither of us could argue that one. We both smiled, and suddenly the tension that had been building all week felt different, lighter, not gone, just transformed. Because neither of us was hiding anymore. Eventually we moved back inside, neither of us ready to sleep or end the conversation. We settled onto opposite ends of the couch, then immediately laughed. Jordan asked. "We're sitting like strangers." He looked down, then grinned. "Good point." A second later he scooted closer, not dramatically, just enough that my heart noticed anyway. "So," he said, "this is weird." "Little." "A lot." I nodded. "A lot." He leaned back against the cushions. "You really liked me this whole time." Groaned. "Can we not phrase it like that?" "Like what?" "Like I spent years writing poetry about you." His grin widened. "Did you?" "No." "Why?" "Because I definitely didn't write poetry about you either." I laughed. Thank God. Conversation flowed easier after that, like we'd crossed some invisible line when it started. How long we'd each noticed, how many chances we'd both missed. The answers stung a little, not because they were bad, but because they revealed exactly how close we'd come so many times without either of us saying a word. Around 1 in the morning, Jordan went quiet. I noticed right away. "You okay?" He nodded, then shook his head, then sighed. Kind of. He looked down at his folded hands, suddenly nervous again, which surprised me since the biggest secret was already out. "What is it?" His jaw tight. "I don't want to screw this up." Honesty in his voice hit harder than I expected. I sat quietly and let him keep going. "The most important person in my life," he said. "I mean that, I know. What if this changes everything?" The question hung there, heavy, real, not irrational at all. We were talking about risking years of friendship, years of history, years of trust. I understood why he was scared, because I was scared too, but after a moment I smiled. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "I've been worried about the exact same thing." A small laugh escaped him. "Really, really, we're idiots, completely." His smile softened, and for a moment we just looked at each other, no jokes, no deflection, just honesty. It was almost 2 before we finally headed toward our rooms. We stopped in the hallway, an awkward pause settling between us, neither of us quite sure what to do now, which felt ridiculous considering we'd known each other for a decade. Jordan laughed nervously. "This feels harder than the actual confession." "Little." "A lot." We both smiled, then another silence, a different one this time, full of possibility. My pulse sped up. His did too, I could tell. He took a small step closer, not much, just enough. "Theo." Eyes met mine and neither of us looked away. The world seemed to shrink down to just the two of us just this moment. Kind of wanted to do something for a while. My heart nearly gave out. "Oh, very eloquent, very smooth," he smiled. "Yeah." Neither of us moved yet. The anticipation felt almost unbearable. Then I laughed softly. "You're overthinking again." His smile widened. "So are you." "Probably. Definitely." Distance between us suddenly felt very small, and for the first time all week, for the first time in asterisk years, there was nothing standing between us except the nerve to close it. His eyes flicked down briefly, then back up to mine, and that tiny movement was enough. Enough to make my pulse race, enough to tell me exactly what he wanted, enough to tell me exactly what I wanted too. Neither of us had to say it out loud. We already knew. The realization settled warm in my chest, and for the first time since he'd shown up at my door with 2 duffel bags, everything finally felt clear. For a few seconds neither of us moved. The hallway felt impossibly quiet, just me, just Jordan, and about 10 years of unresolved feelings standing right there with us. Or maybe not standing between us anymore. Jordan smiled first, a nervous one, the kind I'd seen before every big exam, every job interview, every major moment of his life. Except this time it was different, because this time I knew exactly why. "You know," he said quietly, "this isn't how I imagined tonight going." I laughed. "You imagined it." His face went red instantly. "Great, now I regret saying that." "Nope, too late." "Fantastic, you actually imagined it." "Maybe." I crossed my arms. "Interesting, Jordan." "Theo." He pointed at me. "You're enjoying this a little too much." "A lot." "A lot," I agreed, nodding. Despite everything, despite the nerves, the years, the fact that we just completely rerouted our friendship, it still felt like asterisk us asterisk. That surprised me more than anything. I wasn't losing my best friend. He was still right there, still cracking terrible jokes, still rolling his eyes at me. Still Jordan. Eventually we drifted back to the living room, neither of us interested in sleep anymore. We sat together on the couch, closer than usual, not touching, just close. City light filtered in through the windows. The apartment felt calm in a way it hadn't all week. Jordan leaned his head back against the cushion. "You know what I keep thinking about?" "What?" "How many chances we missed." I laughed softly. "Probably hundreds." His smile flickered, then faded. "You remember that road trip after graduation?" Of course I did, one of my favorite memories ever. Just the two of us driving for 4 days straight, no plan, no schedule, just freedom. "Yeah, almost told you," he said. Then my heart skipped. "What, seriously?" I was sitting there rehearsing it in my head the whole drive. He shook his head. "And then I panicked." That made me laugh because it sounded exactly like him. And then you spent the next 3 years convincing yourself it was a terrible idea. That's painful. Me about it. I shook my head. You should have just said something. His eyebrow lifted. Really, because I knew exactly what was coming. Then why didn't you? Because, I sighed. Because I figured you were straight. He laughed so hard he nearly tipped sideways off the couch. Okay, that's fair. Honestly, I probably would have thought the same thing about you. We're both idiots. Exactly. For a moment we just sat there smiling. The kind of smile that only shows up once years of tension finally lets go a little later. The conversation drifted toward the future. Something we'd both been carefully avoiding because now there actually was a future worth discussing, and that was new. Very new. Jordan grew thoughtful. So what happens now? The question made my pulse jump, not because I didn't want an answer, I very much did, but because it suddenly felt real. More real than anything else that night, I looked at him. What do you want to happen? His eyes met mine, no hesitation at all. I want to see where this goes. My chest tightened warmly like something finally clicking into place. Yeah, a smile crept onto my face before I could stop it. Good, his smile matched mine. Good. Simplicity of it made me laugh. Years of confusion, years of feelings, years of wondering, and somehow the answer really was just that simple. Good. Around 3 in the morning we finally admitted we were exhausted. Jordan stood first, stretching dramatically. Okay, we should probably sleep. Probably. Neither of us moved. He laughed. We're terrible at ending conversations. We've always been terrible at ending conversations. Fair. The smile never left his face. Neither did mine. Then he paused, and for a moment his expression went soft. No joking, no nerves, nothing but sincerity. Hey Theo. Voice dropped quiet. Thanks. I frowned a little. For what? For saying yes. I understood immediately, not just to letting him stay for the week, to all of it, the honesty, the chance, everything. My chest tightened again, even more this time. You don't have to thank me. His smile softened further. Maybe I want to. Neither of us looked away. And in that moment I realized something. The best part of all this wasn't that my feelings had finally been returned. It wasn't even that Jordan felt the same. It was that after all these years I finally knew the truth. And the truth turned out to be better than anything I'd let myself imagine. Tomorrow he'd move back into his own apartment. The week would officially be over. But somehow it felt like something much bigger was only just getting started. The next morning felt strange, not bad, just strange. I woke earlier than usual and lay there staring at the ceiling for a few minutes. The apartment was quiet, sunlight slipping through the blinds, and for the first time in a long time my head wasn't full of questions because the biggest one had finally been answered. Jordan felt the same way. It still didn't feel entirely real. Like I might wake up and discover I'd imagined the whole conversation. But I hadn't. It was real. The late-night confession, the years of missed chances, the absurd fact that we'd both been hiding the exact same feelings the whole time. I smiled despite myself. Then I heard movement in the kitchen. Jordan was already making coffee when I walked in. He looked up and smiled instantly, which alone was enough to make my whole day. Morning. For a second we just stood there looking at each other. Then we both laughed. I asked, this is weird. Kind of. We've known each other forever. I know, and somehow everything feels different. Different isn't bad, I said. His smile softened. No, it isn't. He handed me a mug the same way he had all week. The familiar gesture made me smile. Some things hadn't changed, and honestly I was glad most of the day went to helping him move his things back into his own apartment. The place looked normal again, fresh paint, dry walls, no trace of the disaster that had pushed him out in the first place. As we carried the last box in, Jordan set it down and looked around. Well, I officially live here again. Looks that way. Smile he gave me was small, but it meant something because we both knew what neither of us was saying out loud. This wasn't really the end of anything. If anything, it was the start. Still, there was something bittersweet about it. For a week we'd spent nearly every waking hour together. Now things would be different, not worse, just different. Jordan seemed to be thinking the same thing because after a moment he asked, so you free tonight? I laughed. Jordan, you literally just moved back in. You've been living with me all week. Your point? I shook my head. He grinned, and suddenly I felt lighter than I had in months. That evening we met at our usual restaurant, nothing fancy, just familiar. The waitress actually recognized us. Just the usual, she asked. Jordan looked at me. I looked at him, then we both started laughing. She asked. Nothing, Jordan said. Long week. She shook her head and walked off. The second she was gone, Jordan smiled. You realize this is technically our first date. The word landed harder than expected. Date. Not because I disliked it, quite the opposite. I liked it far too much. I looked down at the table, failing completely at not smiling. Yeah. His grin widened. You look happy. I'm happy. Honesty surprised both of us, but not in a bad way. Not anymore. His expression softened. Good. After dinner we walked through downtown. The weather was perfect, the city glowing around us, people moving through intersections like always. Life going on exactly as it always had, except everything felt different now. Eventually we ended up near the river, water reflecting the lights from the buildings above. For a while we just stood there, taking it in. Then Jordan said, you know what's funny? What? A week ago I was freaking out about even asking to stay with you. I laughed. Seriously. Looked at me like the answer should have been obvious. Because I knew something was changing, my chest tight. I just didn't know what yet. I understood completely because I'd felt it too, maybe before either of us was willing to admit it, maybe before either of us understood what it even was. Somewhere over that week we'd both stopped pretending, stopped running from something that had clearly been there all along. Jordan stepped a little closer, not dramatically, just naturally, the way everything between us felt now. You know, he said quietly, that burst pipe might be the luckiest thing that's ever happened to me. I laughed. That's one way to look at it. I'm serious. I know, so. His smile grew. Any chance I can stay at your place again sometime? I rolled my eyes. There it is. Real reason? He laughed, and hearing it made me realize something. For years. Jordan had been my favorite person, not just because I was in love with him, although that was certainly part of it. He was my favorite person because he made everything better. Every room, every conversation, every ordinary day, and now I didn't have to pretend that wasn't true. I could just enjoy it, enjoy him, enjoy whatever came next. He bumped his shoulder against mine, a gesture he'd done 1,000 times before. Except now it meant something new, something hopeful, something real, and standing there together looking out over the river, I realized the funniest part of all of it. My best friend had only asked to stay with me for 1 week, but I had a strong feeling he was going to be part of my life for a lot longer than that. End.